In 2018, South Chicago's Bowen High School was known as one of the most challenging educational institutions in the area. Michelle Taylor, a 46-year-old African-American literature teacher, had been working there for over 15 years. According to her colleagues and student testimonies collected during the subsequent investigation, focusing particularly on students with gang affiliations and difficult home situations. Michelle lived with her adopted son Marcus Reynolds, born June 12, 1999, in a modest two-bedroom apartment in South Chicago. Marcus's biological parents, Jose and Mabel Reynolds, died in a house fire in 2013, though the exact circumstances of their deaths remained unclear in police reports. The adoption was finalized on September 15, 2013, through the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services. Investigation records indicate that Michelle had specifically requested to adopt a teenager, believing that older children often had the lowest chances of finding permanent homes. FBI interviews with neighbors and colleagues revealed that Michelle maintained a strict routine. She would leave for school at 7:15 a.m., often staying late to help struggling students with their coursework and personal problems. Marcus, who attended the Illinois Institute of Technology studying computer science, would return home around 6 p.m. Police photographs taken after the incident showed walls covered with Marcus's academic achievements, honor roll certificates from Harper High School, computing competition awards, and his acceptance letter to IIT. Michelle had created a detailed scrapbook, recovered from the crime scene, documenting their 5 years together. According to Marcus's college classmates, Michelle supported his passion for programming by purchasing a refurbished computer with her teacher's salary. Bank records showed monthly payments for advanced coding courses. She would often say, as recorded in her personal diary found at the crime scene, "Knowledge is your ticket to a better life." The Taylor Reynolds household stood out in the neighborhood. Local police records showed no calls to their address, despite the surrounding blocks averaging 15 domestic disturbance calls per month. Michelle served on the local community board and organized weekend tutoring sessions for neighborhood kids. Her dedication to education was noted in multiple performance reviews obtained from school records, with her last evaluation describing her as an unwavering advocate for student potential in our most challenging demographics. Several of her former students had gone on to attend college, breaking the cycle of poverty and gang violence that plagued the area. School security records showed that Michelle regularly stayed at school until early evening, offering extra help to students who needed it. She had established an informal after-school program that provided a safe space for students to study and receive tutoring. Many of these students later testified to the positive impact she had on their lives, with several crediting her for helping them avoid gang recruitment. On Tuesday, March 13, 2018, Michelle Taylor remained at Bowen High School until 9:30 p.m. grading papers. The incident report states that she witnessed a murder committed by members of the Black Kings gang from her position near the school's rear parking lot. The victim was later identified as David Martinez, a local business owner who had refused to pay protection money to the gang. According to the forensic analysis, Michelle witnessed 6 gang members participating in the execution. Dexter King Williams, gang leader, age 32, Raymond Baby Jackson, age 28, Tyrone Smith, age 25, Curtis Parker, age 24, Jerome Wilson, age 27, and Michael Harris, age 23. Police records indicate all 6 men had extensive criminal histories including armed robbery, assault, and drug trafficking. School security footage showed Michelle attempting to leave the scene quietly, but she was noticed by the gang members. The subsequent investigation revealed that the gang members recognized her immediately, as 3 of them had relatives who attended Bowen High School where she taught. At approximately 11:45 p.m. that same night, police responded to a disturbance call at Michelle's apartment. The first responders found Marcus Reynolds at the scene, who had returned from his evening classes at 11:30 p.m. The apartment showed signs of forced entry, with the doorframe splintered and the security chain torn from the wall. The medical examiner's detailed report revealed the extent of Michelle's torture. Her fingers were systematically broken, starting with the smallest digit. Burns from cigarettes and a heated knife covered her arms. Defensive wounds on her hands indicated she fought back initially. The torture lasted approximately 1 hour, during which the gang members repeatedly demanded information about what she had seen. The final act was an execution-style gunshot from a .45 caliber handgun. which ballistics later matched to other Black King's crimes. Crime scene investigators found evidence of methodical brutality. The living room furniture had been pushed against the walls to create a space for the torture. Michelle's lesson plans and students' papers were scattered around her body, suggesting the gang members had forced her to kneel on her own work while they tortured her. Tools of torture were deliberately left at the scene: pliers, a blowtorch, and bloodied brass knuckles, all bearing fingerprints that would later help identify the perpetrators. Written on the wall in Michelle's blood was the message, "Curious eyes die first." The gang members had forced her to watch as they destroyed every family photo in the apartment, leaving the shattered frames around her body. Her last intact photo, showing her proudly standing with Marcus at his college awards ceremony, was placed deliberately in her lifeless hands. Police interviewed several neighbors who reported hearing Michelle's screams between 10:30 p.m. and 11:20 p.m., but had not called authorities, citing fear of gang retaliation. Building security cameras had been disabled prior to the break-in, suggesting premeditation and knowledge of the building's security systems. Marcus Reynolds was initially questioned as per standard procedure, and cleared as a suspect due to verified attendance at his evening programming class until 11:15 p.m. At the time, investigators noted his unusually composed demeanor during questioning, which they attributed to shock. The lead detective would later write in his report that Marcus's calmness was unsettling, noting that he seemed more interested in the technical details of the crime than in grieving. The brutality of Michelle Taylor's murder represented a turning point in Chicago's gang violence. The Black Kings had intended to send a message about the consequences of witnessing their crimes. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous: a methodical enemy who would study their brutality not with fear, but as a blueprint for his own revenge. The detailed crime scene photos and medical examiner's report that documented his mother's suffering would become Marcus's first lesson in the art of systematic violence, a lesson he would soon put to use. Following Michelle Taylor's funeral on March 20, 2018, Marcus Reynolds withdrew from the Illinois Institute of Technology. His academic advisor reported that Marcus's last interaction with the university was logging into the system to download specific research papers on surveillance technology and data analysis. Police records show that Marcus moved out of student housing and rented a small studio apartment, paying 6 months in advance with his mother's life insurance money. The landlord later testified that Marcus requested specific modifications to the apartment: enhanced locks, reinforced windows, and permission to install his own internet connection. Over the next 3 months, Marcus's transformation was documented through various sources. His former classmates reported his complete withdrawal from social circles. Bank records revealed unusual purchases: advanced computer equipment, surveillance gear, and materials commonly used for disguise. He accessed his mother's case file through a sophisticated breach of the Chicago Police Department's database, copying detailed reports, crime scene photos, and witness statements. Investigation of Marcus's apartment after the events revealed walls covered with surveillance data on the 6 Black Kings members. He had created detailed profiles of each target: Dexter King Williams, gang leader; daily routines, protection details, known associates; Raymond, baby; Jackson, weapons specialist; fighting habits, preferred bars, gambling addiction; Tyrone Smith, transport coordinator; vehicle details, regular routes, drug delivery schedules; Curtis Parker, enforcer; gym schedule, girlfriend's address, protection racket territory; Jerome Wilson, money handler; bank locations, laundering methods, mistress details; Michael Harris, recruiter; school visits, training locations, safe house addresses. From his computer setup, investigators discovered Marcus had created an intricate digital surveillance network. He hacked traffic cameras, ATM feeds, and security systems throughout South Chicago. His programming expertise allowed him to develop algorithms tracking gang members' movements. Each target's file contained photos spanning months, showing their daily routines from multiple angles. Marcus had mapped their territories, identified their weaknesses, and documented their security measures. He maintained detailed logs of their activities, noting everything from their preferred weapons to their regular coffee orders. The apartment contained a workshop area where Marcus had practiced with various tools, the same types of tools used to torture his mother. Medical textbooks marked with post-it notes revealed his study of human anatomy, particularly focusing on pain thresholds and critical arteries. Purchase receipts showed he had acquired medical supplies, including suture kits and painkillers, suggesting he was preparing for potential injuries during his planned confrontations. A recovered journal revealed Marcus's methodical descent into darkness. Early entries showed grief and rage, but these emotions gradually transformed into cold, calculated planning. He wrote detailed scenarios for each target, considering multiple approaches and contingencies. The journal ended with a chilling statement. "Mom taught me that knowledge is power. I've learned everything about them. Now they'll learn about pain." FBI behavioral analysts later studied Marcus's planning phase, noting that his approach combined his mother's methodical teaching methods with his computer science expertise. He treated revenge like a programming problem, breaking down a complex task into smaller, manageable steps, analyzing all variables, and preparing for every possible outcome. The depth of Marcus's preparation wouldn't be fully understood until after his campaign of revenge began, but one detail stood out in the investigation. He had arranged his mother's class photos and the crime scene photos of her murder side by side. Between them, he placed the tools he would use for his revenge. On July 8, 2018, Raymond "Baby" Jackson disappeared from outside the Blue Crocodile bar. Security footage showed him engaging in a brutal fight with an assailant in the parking lot. Despite Jackson's reputation as a skilled fighter, the attacker, later identified as Marcus Reynolds, overpowered him using military-grade combat techniques, which investigators later traced to intensive training at underground fighting clubs. Jackson's torture lasted 7 days in an abandoned meat processing facility. The medical examiner's report detailed systematic torture that mirrored Michelle Taylor's death, but extended over a longer period. Each of Jackson's fingers was broken in the same sequence used on Michelle. Burns matched the pattern found on his mother's body. The autopsy revealed that Marcus had kept Jackson alive through careful administration of medical care, allowing him to continue the torture. Police found Jackson's body in the trunk of his own Cadillac on July 15th. The body bore evidence of methodical torture, precision cuts following anatomical charts, calculated burns that avoided vital organs, and systematic bone fractures. A recording device recovered from the scene contained Jackson's full confession to Michelle's murder, including details only the killer would know. Tyrone Smith became the second target on July 23rd. Police reports documented a high-speed chase through South Chicago, ending at an abandoned industrial complex. Tire marks and bullet casings traced a path through 12 blocks. Analysis showed Smith had fired 37 shots during the pursuit, while Marcus fired only 4, all hitting their targets with surgical precision. The crime scene at the industrial complex revealed a carefully orchestrated execution. Smith was found in what was once a foreman's office, his body positioned to face a wall where Marcus had projected crime scene photos from Michelle's murder. Forensics determined Smith had been forced to watch these images for hours before his death. 9 shell casings matched the same .45 caliber weapon used to kill Michelle. Marcus's evolution as a killer became evident in the forensic analysis. The first murder showed signs of personal rage despite its methodical nature. The second demonstrated a more refined technique. Smith's autopsy revealed that each shot was placed to cause maximum pain while prolonging death, using knowledge gained from Marcus's study of anatomy. Police discovered both crime scenes had been carefully prepared in advance. The meat processing facility had been modified with soundproofing and restraint systems. The industrial complex showed evidence of pre-positioned ammunition and escape routes. Security cameras in both locations had been disabled, using the same sophisticated malware later traced to Marcus's computer expertise. The 2 murders sent shockwaves through the Black Kings organization. Gang communications intercepted by police revealed growing fear among members. Marcus had left messages at both scenes. "Curious eyes have seen everything" at Jackson's scene, and "Teacher's lesson isn't finished" at Smith's location. Evidence collected from both scenes demonstrated Marcus's psychological warfare tactics. He had left Michelle's lesson plans and graded papers around both victims, forcing them to confront the humanity of the woman they had killed. Each crime scene also included personal items from the victims' homes, proving he could reach them anywhere. These first 2 murders established the pattern that would define Marcus's campaign. Each killing combined his mother's methodical teaching approach with his technical expertise and newly acquired combat skills. He wasn't just killing gang members. He was conducting a masterclass in revenge, with each death building upon the lessons of the previous one. On August 12, 2018, Curtis Parker, Jerome Wilson, and Michael Harris gathered at their headquarters in an abandoned warehouse. Gang communications intercepted by police revealed their growing desperation as they prepared for what they believed would be a final stand against Marcus Reynolds. Marcus initiated his assault at 1:15 a.m. Security cameras captured him systematically disabling the perimeter security before cutting power to the building. The ensuing firefight was documented through police recordings of multiple 911 calls from nearby residents. Forensics later counted 147 shell casings at the scene. Curtis Parker and Jerome Wilson died in the initial assault. Autopsy reports showed they were killed by precisely placed shots. Parker through the heart, Wilson through the throat. Michael Harris, wounded, left a blood trail to a storage room. Crime scene photos showed Marcus had followed the trail methodically, marking each blood droplet with chalk numbers, recreating the same methodical approach his mother used when grading papers. Harris attempted escape through a window, but was intercepted in the alley. The medical examiner's report indicated he was alive for several minutes after being shot, long enough for Marcus to show him the crime scene photos of his mother's murder. A voice recorder found near Harris's body contained his final confession, admitting his role in Michelle's torture. The systematic elimination of Dexter King Williams's security detail followed over the next week. The first bodyguard, Anthony Torres, was ambushed outside his girlfriend's apartment on August 15th. Security footage showed Marcus waiting for 12 hours before making his move. Torres's body was found positioned to serve as a message, his hands zip-tied around a stack of Michelle's graded papers. The second bodyguard, Marcus Johnson, died in hand-to-hand combat near Club Obsidian on August 17th. Surveillance cameras captured a brutal 4-minute fight, showing Marcus's refined combat skills. The coroner's report noted that every strike targeted vital points with surgical precision. Johnson's body was discovered with a teacher's grading rubric pinned to his chest, each fatal wound marked with a red X. Keith Phillips, the final bodyguard, was eliminated in his home on August 19th. Crime scene investigators found evidence that Marcus had studied Phillips's habits for weeks, learning his security system and daily routine. Phillips was killed in his sleep, the same way Michelle had been denied any chance to defend herself. His body was surrounded by Michelle's teaching certificates. Dexter Williams attempted to flee Chicago on August 21st. Traffic cameras tracked his vehicle heading south on I-94. At 2:37 a.m., a stolen semi-truck driven by Marcus forced Williams's car off the road. The crash investigation revealed that Marcus had calculated the exact point of impact needed to disable the vehicle without killing its occupant. The systematic elimination of the Black King's leadership demonstrated Marcus's evolution from a calculating student to a master of lethal efficiency. Each death was a carefully planned lesson, combining his mother's teaching methods with his technical expertise. The precision of his attacks, the psychological warfare of using his mother's teaching materials, and the methodical documentation of each kill showed that Marcus had transcended simple revenge. He had turned murder into a curriculum, with each death building toward his final lesson. FBI analysts noted that Marcus's campaign against the Black Kings represented a new category of revenge killing, one that combined academic methodology with technical expertise and military precision. The only target remaining was Dexter Williams, and for him, Marcus had planned not just a killing, but a final exam in pain, to be conducted in the very classroom where his mother had taught her last lesson. The final act of Marcus Reynolds' revenge unfolded at Bowen High School on August 22, 2018. Police found Dexter King Williams strapped to Michelle Taylor's desk in room 237, where she had taught her last class. Crime scene photos documented Williams's systematic torture using common school supplies. Compass points had traced precise patterns matching his mother's wounds. Rulers had been broken to create sharp edges for cutting, and standard office scissors had been used with surgical precision. The medical examiner's report detailed how Marcus had recreated every wound from his mother's autopsy report over a 12-hour period. Each injury on Williams corresponded exactly to those found on Michelle's body. down to the depth and angle of the cuts. The torture had been executed with scientific accuracy, transforming classroom materials into instruments of methodical revenge. Audio recordings recovered from the scene captured Williams' confession to ordering Michelle's murder. The recording also documented Marcus's clinical approach, explaining each step of the torture as if conducting a lesson. He had arranged crime scene photos from Michelle's murder on the classroom walls, creating what he called a visual syllabus of suffering. School security footage showed Marcus entering at 8:45 p.m. using his mother's old keycard, which he had reprogrammed. He had prepared the classroom meticulously, arranging tools on the desk in the same order his mother had organized her teaching materials. The police found Michelle's lesson plans from her last day, with Marcus's modifications turning them into a torture schedule. At 9:15 a.m., as police surrounded the building, Marcus sat at his old desk, reading his mother's annotated copy of Crime and Punishment. Investigators found him exactly as witnesses had last seen him as a student, calm, focused, and taking notes in the margins. The only difference was the blood on his hands and the dead gang leader at the teacher's desk. On the desk, Marcus had left a USB drive containing detailed evidence of the Black King's criminal empire: financial records, drug trafficking routes, protection racket details, and proof of 37 unsolved murders. Williams's recorded confession implicated numerous corrupt officials, leading to the largest police corruption investigation in Chicago's history. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence of Marcus's guilt in 7 murders. The defense argued for temporary insanity, but Marcus refused this strategy. Psychiatric evaluations revealed him to be perfectly sane, describing his actions as the logical conclusion of a carefully planned curriculum in revenge. During sentencing, Marcus addressed the court while looking at his mother's photograph. His statement was recorded verbatim. "I don't regret anything. Each one received exactly what they deserved. My mother taught me forgiveness, but she also taught me that every action has consequences. This wasn't revenge. It was education. They learned in their final moments about the pain they caused. The lesson is complete." Marcus Reynolds was sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. The judge noted that his crimes, while methodically planned and executed, showed a level of psychological sophistication that made him particularly dangerous. His mother's teaching philosophy of knowledge is power had been twisted into a devastating weapon. The case fundamentally changed gang dynamics in South Chicago. The systematic destruction of the Black Kings, combined with the evidence Marcus provided, led to the arrests of 127 gang members and 23 corrupt officials. Michelle Taylor's classroom, room 237, was sealed off and later converted into a community center for at-risk youth, turning a site of ultimate revenge into a place of prevention.